Hello, everybody, and you are very welcome to our Well Expo today. And I am chatting with Brigid Gallagher, author of Watching the Daisies, which I just love the title. Um, and when I saw the title and was chatting with Brigid, I thought, absolutely, we need to find out this lady's story. And as you would see by the ad that was put up, it was called When Pain Finds a Pen. And it is the story of how writing has helped Brigid heal and how the book came about. Brigid, you are so welcome. I mean, after chatting to you yesterday, there is so much in your story. I don't know how we are going to condense it into our 25 minutes today. You are very, very welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, Barbara, and to Esther as well.
Oh, more than welcome. So, look, the best way to start this is just a bit of your diagnosis, how long it took, and what triggered the writing through that, how it all came about.
Well, I became sick in August of 2003. It was after some stressful events, in particular a bog fire that surrounded the house that I was living in Kerrytown. And it was a few months after that, I experienced a pain in my left arm for a few days, a kind of throbbing. And then one night I started to get a heaviness in my chest, like someone was sitting on it, and very short of breath. So I ended up at accident emergency department, where they tested me for blood clots because there's a history of those in our family. And they said that the pain was muscular. Now, over the coming weeks and months, other symptoms developed. I felt very, very cold. It was very hard to stay warm. I had extreme breathlessness, and I couldn't sleep without having sitting up with pillows. My left arm developed into a very bad case of a frozen shoulder. The three middle fingers in my left hand swelled up. All the joints in my body felt like they had hot irons in them, and a terrible insomnia. The concentration went. It was quite a scary time. And it was more than a year later before I was called back to the hospital for further tests and went round various different departments. One of the things they discovered was that at that point, more than a year later, my lung function was only 70% of what it should be, and my left lung wasn't functioning normally. They diagnosed post-viral syndrome or chronic fatigue, and basically said that it was all in my head, that it was psychosomatic, which is quite shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine trying to function with that level of pain and discomfort.
Yeah, it was horrible, and I had to give up my work as a natural medicines therapist that I'd done for nearly 18 years, and so I had to rely on benefits. It was really tough. So I did a lot of soul searching, and one of the things that helped me a lot in the early stages too was just each day focusing on something to be thankful for. You know, I always kept a gratitude diary and a journal. Writing had always played a big part in my life from the time I was a child. It began, you know, writing projects at school, all that sort of thing, and explaining things. And I loved teaching when I was a therapist. I loved inspiring others in their self-healing journey. So now it was my turn to really focus on myself.
Yeah, because you brought, like during our conversation yesterday as well, you were one of the first natural therapists back in the 80s, you were telling me. And then through that, you actually traveled to Sarajevo then with that skill set and worked over there for a while delivering it. So now, you know, you're all those years on and you kind of have to look and say, what have I got that can help me? Or, you know, because nothing is coming from the outside in. So looking inside then to see what can help yourself.
Yeah, so one of the things I had been working on, which I didn't actually mention yesterday, was I had started writing a book when I moved to Ireland about the inner healing that accompanies when you make changes in your house with things like feng shui and clutter clearing. I eventually ditched that book because it no longer resonated with me. But then one of the things I did though when I was ill, and I thought I'd really love to join a writing group. So I joined a writing class. It was only maybe a 6 or 8 week writing class in Gorthahort. And the lady who led it, she placed black and white photographs of women and girls on the table, and we had to pick one photograph and just write what we got inspired by from the photograph. So it was just letting go of head stuff and just writing from the heart. And basically one of the things that came out of that was, you know, I've been a carer all my life. Our mother died when we were all very young, and as the oldest, I had a lot of responsibility, and then I went into being a therapist and so on. So it was really time to look at caring for me and putting myself first. So that was the message from that first series of classes. Then another class started in Dunlow a few years later, and I joined that, and I put my name down for any further classes. So it was actually in April 2010 that the Ross's Writers was formed, and a group of us, maybe 8 to 10 at any one time, we wrote together every Thursday, almost every Thursday for 6 years.
Wow, wow, that's a long, actually, that's a long time for a writing group to be able to continue, you know, because you sometimes find that on an, you know, kind of might wane away or people drop off, you know what I mean, along the way, and it just, it kind of fizzles out. So 6 years is a long time for a group to stay connected.
Yeah, we laughed and we cried together, and we wrote, everything we wrote was confidential, but we did produce our first book in 2011, just a year or so afterwards, and we produced 100 copies and sold them to make funds for local charities. And then the following year we wrote another one, and we produced 300 copies.
Lovely.
We didn't quite sell them all, but we did raise a lot of money for charity again. And it was a group, a friendship support group as well, but we were all writing from our hearts, and we had great fun. It was such a joy. And
then there was a competition.
Yeah, in 2012, I bought a copy of Women in Home magazine in that summer, and they were asking people to enter a memoir writing competition, where you would write a synopsis in the first 3 chapters of a memoir. So I took the magazine into the group, and myself and another lady, we both entered the competition. And obviously I didn't win, but I did carry on writing, and I sent my synopsis and first 3 chapters to a very renowned journalist, Sue Leonard, who critiqued it and gave me lots of positive information on improving my writing, including conversations in it to lighten it up. And so the writing carried on, and 4 years later it became the book that it is now. But I had lots of help along the way. The writing group, Ross's Writers, they helped critique it. I had help from Books Go Social. They make writing conferences usually every year, and I went along to the very first one of those and realised that actually self-publishing was perhaps the best route for me, rather than looking for a publisher, a conventional publisher. So that started me on the road to self-publishing. And then I set up a blog in February of 2016. And I'd really recommend anyone that wants to write to perhaps set up a blog to promote yourself and to practice your writing skills and meet lots of other authors and writers.
So you had been attending the hospital, and then you're kind of looking at yourself and your own toolkit and what you have to help. But somewhere along the line, you were still waiting on a diagnosis, even while you were, as you say, you'd entered the competition and you were trying to write, you know, get your thoughts on paper. So how did it intertwine then with actually receiving the diagnosis, and did that change your direction?
Well, it's the diagnosis came in around the same time as I joined Ross's Writers. It was 7 years, and it only came about because of a blood test called a double-stranded DNA test, which signifies some kind of autoimmune problem going on. And that's the problem with fibromyalgia, is that it's often very difficult to diagnose because it can come alongside different autoimmune conditions. So it's not uncommon to wait a long time for diagnosis. But nowadays there are lots of support groups and help there for people with fibromyalgia. It's really quite common, and there's much more help there. But Ross's Writers coincided around the same time as they got the diagnosis. So once I had the diagnosis, I was able to research more what were the best things to do. Although I had used a lot of my natural medicines for my using my own techniques, but also seeing different therapists. I was able then, I went to David Foley, medical herbalist, and he literally rebuilt my system from the bottom up. And I was taking herbs for about 4 or 5 years from David, and he really helped a lot of my health issues.
So which is great. Yeah, because that then, well, knowing that that side of you is kind of starting to, you know, you're making inroads into it and you're starting to feel better, actually gives you the space then to focus on things that you like to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What you like to do then actually starts to become a feature and a focus then in your day and in your week or whatever, without always having to worry about what it is. You know, can I take this or can I take that as regards your health? So your story then is interwoven into Watching the Daisies. And I have to say, I love the title. I think it's absolutely brilliant. You know, how, like, what was it that triggered the title even?
Well, one of the things that happened was I wasn't able to work for nearly 3 years. I tried going back to the natural medicines after a period of about 3 years, but my heart just wasn't in it anymore. But I'd always been a keen gardener. I was brought up in a family where we grew our own vegetables and flowers, and we had a beautiful garden growing up, and I'd always loved gardening. So I had it in mind to maybe retrain in gardening. And I moved house into a house where the man there grew tomatoes. He had greenhouses for tomatoes, and he'd passed away. But it was just a couple of weeks after I moved house. I got the calling to perhaps investigate more about training in organic horticulture, and I phoned up the glasshouses in Killalt near Gortha, and lo and behold, they were starting a new intake and training for organic horticulture just a few weeks later.
Lovely.
So I joined there in 2006, stayed for 2 years, trained in organic horticulture and growing flowers and garden design. And when I left there, I went, well, on my work placement, I worked in Glenveigh, and then I went for the summer to work there part-time after I left the glasshouses. And I began teaching the transition year students in Dunlow. I did that for 3 years, and that was one afternoon a week. And I was accepted into the Heritage in Schools programme, teaching in the national schools and helping them to set up organic school gardens. So again, that was part-time. That was as much as I could manage because my health still wasn't 100%. But by that time, I was on no medication. I was only on anti-inflammatories and painkillers for perhaps a year or so. But, you know, a lot of people with fibromyalgia are on very heavy medication, and I've managed to do it without, which I'm very grateful for.
That is some achievement, you know, that really is. But like that, anybody, I suppose we should say that, you know, they should always start with the GP first and go through that process and find out what works for them along the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But your story from, so basically doing all that organic horticulture, you were quite literally watching the daisies because, you know, everything starts, it has to slow down.
Yeah.
You have to slow down.
that's one of the messages from my book. And when I moved to Donegal from Scotland, I'd been very, very busy, and we were brought up in an age where your self-esteem was based on how busy you were, or how successful you were, how good you got marks you got in exams and so on. And when I moved to Donegal, everything just slowed down. But when I got sick, everything stopped for those 3 years. But now I live in a new, slower life, which is akin to the saying, you know, you're watching the daisies, you're enjoying life in the slow lane. So the subtitle for my book is Life Lessons on the Importance of Slow, which has been one of my major life lessons, is to slow down.
And it kind of, like, you became 3 times top seller on Amazon.us.
Yeah.
So did it end up being more than you thought it was going to be?
Well, I've always done a lot of creative visualization and set myself goals. And one of the things that I wanted to achieve was to get 50 reviews on Amazon. So I achieved that there just earlier this year.
Brilliant.
And the Amazon US is for ebooks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big market for ebooks now, and it's sold not only in Amazon but Kobo and Barnes and Noble and Apple, and people like the ease of just downloading an ebook, and perhaps it only costs 99 cents to read a book, and sometimes it's free. So there's a huge market there, and the good thing about it is you don't actually have to spend a lot of money in putting out a book now, because you can do it all. You can do the print version and the ebook version online. And it saves you putting out a lot of money, like we did with Ross's Writers. It cost us a lot of money to get maybe 100, 300 print copies of the book.
Yeah, it has moved on. It has moved on quite a bit, you know, even in the future, like, it's so quick how it turns around.
Yeah. And social media and marketing yourself is such a huge part of being a writer now. Writers are generally very introverted and shy people. So you have to learn a whole new range of marketing skills and put yourself out there, connect with other people, reach out to other writers, to other writing groups and so on. And there's so much online. Creating a blog is a great tool for meeting other writers as well, and new readers.
Yeah, and the other thing with your book is that you have it's the kind of book that you don't actually have to start. Once you start page 1, you have to go straight through, you know, to the end to follow the story, because you've actually broken it into sections.
Yeah, I've broken it into my early life when I was busy as a bee. My nieces used to call me Auntie Bee because I was always busy. And then there's the slowing down part coming to Donegal, the stop in the world part when I stopped for 3 years, and then life in the slow lane. It's divided into different years, and there's different themes in the book as well. There's a lot about natural medicines, but there's also a lot about conventional medicine too. And at the end too, I give my top tips for people. And one of them is to cultivate a good relationship with your GP, and, you know, to explore natural medicines and conventional medicines.
And you actually originally, because that's what you were saying to me yesterday, is that originally when you were first starting your studies, say in your late teens or early 20s, it was actually medicine you wanted to go into?
Yeah, I wanted to study medicine, and I applied for medicine, and I, as my last choice on the application form, I put down study dentistry in Glasgow University.
There's a bit of a difference, I suppose.
There is a bit of a difference, but I did it for a year and my heart just wasn't in it. I went then into the life assurance industry in Edinburgh. I worked in the actuarial department for 5 years, and then I was a life underwriter. So health has been always a theme in my life, health and well-being, and inspiring others.
Definitely. And I like, from talking to you, I said, I mean, you traveled, you've been, was it India you went to for?
I went to India for 6 weeks in 2003. The first solo holiday I ever did abroad was to Egypt in 1997, and that's where I had a dream that we were all basically here to learn the same lesson, which was to learn to love ourselves. And that's a key theme in my book, is first learn to love yourself. And that's a lifelong task. Yeah.
It's definitely a message that has come across even from previous people that I've chatted with here. And no, I'm not using the word interview because we chat, that I've chatted with here. And it is actually that we do need to love ourselves a bit more and be kinder to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and as you say, you know, not always be that busy bee rushing, actually take time out for ourselves.
Yeah, knowing when to rest and knowing when to say no as well, and you know, not always being people pleasing. Listen to your heart and listen to what your body needs, rather than what someone wants you to be, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have, Esther, are there any questions come in at the moment, or any links? I don't know if she can hear me. Hello.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that can go wrong will go wrong today. Yes, lots of lovely comments coming in. We have Gina O'Malley saying Brigid's an inspiration. We've been friends for over 40 years. Audrey O'Neill is on. She's one of the founders of Fibromyalgia Ireland and a huge believer in herbs for health. Attitude is everything when it comes to healing, and taking responsibility for your own health is so important. It makes a massive difference. Nothing wrong with slowing down. It has also done me, Audrey, the world of good. She says, well done, Brigid, amazing achievements, and that she would love a copy of your book, and I'm sure her group would too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have all the links there as well. They're going up in the chat for anybody who wants to purchase Brigid's book, because there's actually quite a few platforms that you're on there. I see you're on one of the Apple ones as well. Being an Android user, that's kind of one of the first things that I notice. So it's on, I saw it's on Amazon, it's on the Apple books, it's
Barnes and Noble and Kobo.
Barnes and Noble and Kobo. So there are a few links there, and there's a link there to your website as well, where they can actually follow your blog and get in touch with you too if there's anything they want to find out, if they want some more information from you. And plus, I probably should also say now at the end of this is that myself and Brigid were chatting earlier before we came on air that probably we will actually be doing something together in the future here for Well Expo online. So do keep an eye out, and Brigid will be back, because we could have chatted yesterday all day. I mean, your story is absolutely fascinating, and I mean, we only dipped into the surface of it today. So your book, Watching the Daisies, all the links are there. Your website is there. So please, if you are watching and viewing, do get in touch with Brigid. Do get her book. You know, it is a fascinating read, and it will hopefully help you to slow down, take stock, and mind yourself. Brigid, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything at all there you want to say before we sign off?
No, just thank you to you and to Esther. Really enjoyed it. It's been good fun.
No, look, more than welcome. Absolutely more than welcome. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you more about some upcoming plans that we will have for Well Expo. Thank you. And thank you to everybody out there today. Cheerio. We'll see you on Thursday.